Have you ever looked at these beers on the ground in last EPOCH and went, I really want to make myself an alcoholic that deals damage every time I pick one of these up? Well, here you go. With this new, amazing, probably already done before flask build, you can basically chug these potions off the ground, you throw them back at your enemies, everything explodes, and you become a nice little walking tactical nuke. Honestly, this build has been pretty fun. It's very glass cannon-y, so it's definitely not one of those builds where you're going to take it into hardcore or, you're going to enjoy the fact that you accidentally stepped in a puddle and your life just vanishes before your eyes. And because we're using potions as our main damage dealer, you do end up kind of vaporizing yourself into nothingness very quickly, but it is very fun, very explosive. So this is my character here. We've got a level 93 Falconer named Torchic. I don't even have maximum resistances, which I would much prefer to have, but honestly, my gear isn't the greatest. It's kind of just very bare bones. This is something that if you were market, you could probably beat this gear in 5 minutes just buying things, but here we are. There's my Torchic friend walking around. I will wait for these shadows to go away real quick. But basically what happens is every time we throw a Acid Flask, it will consume flasks here, or your health bars, beers, potions, whatever you want to call them, because they do sometimes appear as beers, or unless you're in the Grand Brewery, they're always beers. And they will just hit the target and explode. We throw multiple at a time. Basically, what happens is we pair the flasks with the Elico's Abandon chest, and it will consume a potion as long as you have one to deal 170% more damage. A lot of the gameplay loop involves sprinting around and trying not to step in any sort of damage over time puddle, because those just obliterate your health bar in a build like this that's glass cannon. Picking up these flasks and then chucking them out. Now, there's a lot of optional gearing things you could do to make your life better, which is why some people might disagree with my choice of build, which is Elico's Innovation. I'm choosing this simply because I like the fact that I'm getting health back every time I throw a flask. It's just a lot smoother for monolith clearing. If I was going to do a boss, I probably would not put this on. Yeah, let's run over the skills real quick before I start getting into gearing. For flasks, you go all the way to the left because you want barrage, you want those extra flask throws. You want the travel speed as well on the flask to make things a little bit snappier. Besides that, pick up all the more damage nodes, the mana efficiency nodes, because as you'll see later, there are some gearing options you can take to make things very difficult for yourself mana-wise, but are worth the payoff. And then obviously we're going fire damage, so we're going on the right side of the tree. We're grabbing, instead of the armor, we grab the fire res shred. You grab extra explosions on the back end of it, more throwing damage with it, more crit chance with it, because we do want to crit with the skill. And then when you can, later on in your gearing cycle, you go down here for a Knowledge of Immunity. This does change to Fire Res, which you can see here at the bottom of the tooltip. So this actually becomes fire penetration per 5% uncapped fire resistance. Note that it is not poison resistance, it is fire resistance for your uncapped. If you don't have the points for this, then that's fine. You just kind of go for other stuff. Because you can technically go down here and make this a full trapper, but that's a whole nother thing. I will talk about Explosive Trap and Bladestorm in a second. This is a specific gearing decision I made because I just like it, but Explosive Trap is dropped for anything else if you do not equip a certain relic. For our Falcon, you want to give him flasks. I only put enough Acid Flask charges for 100%. I don't really need him to gain more, besides like a 1-to-1 ratio when I'm casting. Give him a couple more Acid Flask charges just so he can throw them. And the important thing to note for him throwing Acid Flask is that it scales off your stats and your tree. So this is basically a souped up version of you flying around, which is why I called this build Torchic. I just like Torchic. He's a little fire boy. So that's all. That's the only reason. We grab Falconer's Mark just to get over there, which is good because it's more damage. And then we grab the consumption node for the Falcon's Mark to give us more move speed, which will give us more damage, and you'll see that on the skill tree in a bit. Besides that, this is all sort of fairly whatever you want. I went down here and increased my Falcon's damage because I felt like it was more in the spirit of the build. I went over here and grabbed Falcon Strikes as a line attack just because I like being able to send him out in front of me instead of having to click on a specific spot. That's personal preference as well. And then mana gain back when he hits stuff based off my attributes is super useful, especially with the health gain. We have very limited health gain in this build. because of our gearing situation. Smoke Bomb, just because that's our traversal skill. I went ahead and grabbed like Cleanse Negative Ailments because dot damage is your worst enemy. I went over here for more throwing damage while I'm sitting inside of it, so instead of like throwing this out and doing roughly like 300k with no consumption, I step in here, I gain some stacks, and I throw it again, and then I do like 350, 500, 600, depending on how many stacks I'm getting. Bladestorm, this is the new skill. I really like Bladestorm for Acid Flask, especially down here. You grab Shattering, which means that Acid Flask deal more damage when you're actually exploding them on top of the target. You can have Acid Flask instead of Bleed. You make it Chill, which is super useful for making sure nothing is hitting you as often. And then I went over here to grab the extra Bladestorm nodes so that it's more useful in a monolith. If you wanted to, you could probably go ahead down here to Shurikens and go that route, but it's really not a big deal. You kind of do whatever you want here. We have so many skill points with this specific gearing setup that it really doesn't matter. If you're struggling mana issues, you take off Razor Rain 100%, because as you can see, let me throw it here. You end up losing mana really quickly, depending on how many targets there are. So if I just keep spamming this thing, you're just going to run out of mana instantly. So what you actually want to do, if you're taking this Bladestorm with the node for Explosive Trap, is if you're running out of mana, you take off this, and instead of having a bunch of Bladestorms, you probably only throw it like twice instead of 3 times, because you can have 3 active. So it'll help you in the long run. The main reason for that is the new Relic Artifice of Devastation. This will randomly trigger an explosive trap at a nearby enemy, consuming 120% of his mana cost. That's rough. I believe explosive trap says 8.6. It is more than that unless you start getting nice ring enchantments. That's why you see me struggle a little bit with mana in the showcase videos, just because I don't have perfect rings yet. Basically, explosive trap will do more fire res shred, which is fine. I believe this actually converts if I put it cold. I forget, but let's just check that right now real quick. It does. So this is not as useful. This is here just because we have so many points with explosive trap. But I'm putting it down into cold because I like the fact that it's going to chill everything that it explodes on. And at the end of the day, explosive trap isn't here for damage. I specialize it for a couple reasons. 1, mana efficiency to bring down the mana cost. 2, it buffs my Falcon. 3, we like Dusk Shrouds, and it gives us extra throwing damage, or it gives the skill a little extra throwing damage with the Dusk Shrouds. But for the main part, it's the Dusk Shrouds gain per second. And then up here, this one here is crazy. So this got nerfed this season, but that's okay. We're fine with that. It sucks, but there's a reason it got like this. So when explosive trap drops, it has a chance to fling a flask and consume 70%, which is really good because when it does trigger, it throws a flask. Well, for some reason it's throwing a flask over there, but it does throw a flask and an extra trap at other targets, which is super cool. But there is a chance for it to throw a flask at a target if I can get it to trigger here. Oh, it was just up there. So sometimes it'll throw that, which scales off your tree. This also means that because it's technically a sub-skill, this thing hits like a nuke. So you can see there that without consuming any potions, it's already doing 1,000,000 damage. Whereas previously, when I needed to self-cast it, it was dealing 1,000,000 damage consuming a potion. And then obviously when you throw in a Bladestorm, this is going to throw traps consistently. And then all of a sudden now you're having a lot more Acid Flasks. As you can see, this is a lot cleaner. So this 10%, it triggers a lot. Don't let that scare you. That's kind of the rough idea for the skills at the moment. As far as what the character looks like, movement speed is one of our best friends. Let me check the passive tree here. So you end up going for increased damage for increased movement speed and being able to dual wield. Obviously, we want to crit, so we are going to be dual wielding a Trader's Tongue. These are very easy to get. Mine isn't even... I mean, mine's decently rolled, we'll say that, but I didn't hit my 3 LP, so, you know, it is what it is. As far as the rest of this tree goes, you dip into Marksman kind of late. You don't want to go into Marksman early as far as, like, leveling, right? This skill, you know, you go here, you grab Concentration because, obviously, we don't want to be hit by anything. And I hate flow. I really don't like this playstyle with flow. Otherwise, it could be really good. but also flow is mainly for increased damage, crit multi. It's really strong. I just don't like how it plays, so I'm not choosing it. If you want, you can go down this route. Concentration for less hit damage taken when you do get hit, because there's no like 100% dodge. Go down here. You kind of get the basic nodes. You get man on dodge. You get throwing damage. You get flat throwing damage for you and your Falcon. You go down here. You get some more dex. You get some health gain when your Falcon hits an enemy. You get some increased armor when your Falcon hits an enemy. Grab the glancing blow stuff. Eventually cap out needle-like precision as you level up. This character, like I said, only 93, so this will get capped out at some point. Tailwind, it's just a strong node. Up here, more damage per stack of slow. So we're kind of stacking haste and movement speed. You want to get a little bit of slow chance for the more damage part. And area for skills up here too. Mana when a decoy detonates is useful. I just like using decoy. It's personal preference. You don't need to have it. But you do want this node regardless for the increased area for skills. And then I do want to mention Coordinated Fade here. This skill can be used improperly and result in you feeling even more squishy than you should be. For a glass cannon build, you really want to make sure that your defensives are set properly, and this is one of them. This skill causes you to dodge the next hit you would receive, which is massive. For someone who is only really dodging, you need to make sure that you are using this ability properly. So, this scales based on how many points you put in, 1 to 5. If you put in 1, that means your flask needs to be here on the far left. If you put in more than that, which is personal preference, it gives you flat health. It's not too big of a deal if you want to put this on a more comfortable keybind. Obviously, I don't want to re-keybind myself. I'm okay with my Q being my main attack. If I wanted to be my right click more, then I would put 5 points in it, because I will take convenience over min-maxing any day. So this is important. You want your stacks of Silver Shroud, and you want them to be up almost all the time. At least 100% if possible, because when they fall off, you want to be able to get them right back. As soon as it falls off, it's back on me again. Now let's talk gearing real quick. We run Firestarter's Torch. This is something just to give us more fire damage, and also because there's not too much we could use in this slot that would really be better than a Firestarter's Torch. We're basically always going to be inflicting Spreading Flames, even on single target. It only takes like a couple casts to get Spreading Flames on the target. Sometimes, if you have to cast 3 times to get Spreading Flames, oh well, but 42% more damage is a lot. You can see that instead of doing, 300,000 damage, as soon as it's on, you're doing an extra 100,000 plus without consuming any potions yet, so it is very strong. You don't care about fire damage over time. Increased movement speed is more damage, and this is really easy to get higher LPs. I just, for some reason, can't hit a 2 LP or a 3 LP to save my life, so we're with this nice corrupted max rolled one. Elikos I've already talked about. You really just want plus to Acid Flask levels. The main reason for that is because you want to be greedy with the skill, so you do want to grab everything. Plus Acid Flask is basically the only requirement I would say on this chest. Otherwise, it's up to you, whatever you want. Elikos, I'll talk about belts in a second, because there's about 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. You could use any belt you really want. On your rings, it's really important to get minus throwing mana cost and plus throwing damage on your rings. You really want to take that mana cost down. So especially if you're playing this version with Artifice, you want throwing cost as your max thing. I think there's a couple people that would probably argue to do Primordial here. It's really just up to you. As far as gloves go, we are using Lyricas, whatever you want to call it, just for the crit multi. And the fact that it often comes in a 2 LP glove. That's really it. You don't care about shurikens, you don't care about poison on throwing hit. There's not really great corruptions on here, so do whatever you really want. I put throwing damage and crit chance on it. Boots, Razorfall, you get the +2, you get the dexterity, and you get some movement speed and effective haste. Effective haste is really nice. It gives you more movement speed, which is more damage for us. Far as you gain haste and area assault and all that stuff and umbral blades, we ignore that part. These are really good boots regardless. If you wanted to use something else, you can, but the +2 to skills is really strong. I don't think Trader's Tongue really needs and introduction. It gives you flat crit chance, not increased crit chance, so this is also a no-brainer for a crit build. We're running Peak of the Mountain just for more consistency for crits. This also means that you can't leech health from crits. This makes us more of a glass cannon. If you really, really, really do not like the glass cannon vibe, take off this helmet and just struggle with crit chance everywhere. Your damage will be slightly lower, but your consistency will be a lot higher. You'll be able to leech health every time you throw a flask, because I can't. Everything I do, besides flat health gain on hits, does not attribute to me. So you cannot... It's rough, but this is a really good helmet. It's super easy to find early on. I put +4 to Falcon just because I wanted to play more into the Falcon build, but you could run plus skills to Bladestorm, crit chance, whatever you want to do. Nihilus is Nihilus. It's not required. It's just super convenient, and I like it a lot. You can see mine isn't the greatest. I even have -1 to all res on this. It's just strong because of the mana regen that you get, and the increased health that you can get, and the movement speed, but by no means do you need this. It's just super useful if you're going to run Artifice. Now let's talk quick alternatives. If you don't like the idea that you have to throw your Bladestorm and then cast your spell for Flask, you can get rid of this Bladestorm component entirely and just run Pillager's Gold. This will make it so that you're throwing Burning Daggers every time you consume a potion, which is every single time you throw a Flask. I would personally, if you're going to run this, pair this with Scavenger. A well-rolled Scavenger, you can easily get 4 LP on this thing. These two pair very well hand-in-hand. Mainly because your Burning Daggers don't do a crazy amount of damage, but they also a good way to add supplemental damage. Obviously, you're only going to get 2 a second. This makes your build super convenient because you have a load of chance to find potions, which feeds into the whole thing of consuming potions. Obviously, if you're not being able to consume potions, your damage is lower anyways, so why not take the consistency and no mana issues? This is also kind of there. I'm mainly using this. It's new, it's fun, that's it. Honorable mention, Jungle Queen's Chaps. I think everyone knows this thing has a bunch of potion slots on it. It's just solid. It gives you dodge rating every time you cast your spell. It gives you some dexterity, but the +16 potion slots is huge. When you put this on, you basically rarely need to worry about running out of potions, and you gain a bunch of dodge chance while you're throwing your skill, so it's perfect. As far as relics go, it's kind of whatever you want, to an extent. Obviously, with this node down here, you want as much fire resistance as possible for your fire resistance penetration. So, in an ideal world, everything you have is increased health in either elemental resistance or fire resistance. So, you just get a bunch of this stuff. I'm currently running the one that locks me at 2 Weaver's Idols, so otherwise these would all be Weaver's Idols instead of Stout Idols. And then you can get a 2x2 with a bunch of crit chance and crit multi, which is also useful. It's not too bad. Increased damage with a dagger because we're wielding a dagger. You know, this is a really strong offensive one. This is a lot safer in general because it gives you health and fire res. So I would put 2 of these here if I had 2 good ones instead of this all day. As far as your altar, really just look for increased effect of prefixes, suffixes, dodge rating per equipped corrupted idol, you know, that whole thing. It's useful, it's good. Blessings, whatever you want. You can do fire resistance on your Caldera Blessing, you can do fire damage. Yeah, you got a couple options sort of everywhere, because you could do dodge rating here, you could do dodge rating here, for more consistency, and instead of all resist, you could do crit avoidance. Instead of health regen, you could do flat mana. I've been playing around with both. I find flat mana to be a lot more useful than health regen, but it's whatever you want to do, really. So, that's all the technical mumbo jumbo. See you next time. Thanks.